Hey, welcome back to About That. Come with me inside, just gonna grab a quick coffee. So just before the break, we were talking about jobs. And when the pandemic shut everything down, unemployment went way up to 8.1%. That's a few full percentage points above where it should be. Then when things reopened and people started hiring again, suddenly there was a worker shortage. And so one problem was you had all of these employers competing for people, driving wages up, which clearly is a good thing for those people. But as we heard, more people with better paying jobs equals more spending in the economy, which kind of invariably puts this upward pressure on inflation. But there's still so much demand for goods and services in the economy that job creation is blowing through the roof. And I think it's something like 57% higher now than it was pre-pandemic. And this excess steam is also pushing inflation upward. So this is exactly what the Bank of Canada is trying to prevent. So, one of the things that we'll likely hear tomorrow in the budget is an attempt to balance the job market, to find enough workers for jobs that have been hard to fill. So construction, healthcare, for example, but not adding so many jobs that it keeps the inflation train rolling. Oh, hello.
How's it going?
Good. Fancy meeting you here. The odds astronomically low of us just happening to be in the same coffee shop. But okay, so I do actually need your help in reconciling these two things that we've just been discussing. So how is it that you can, on the one hand, have a worker shortage, right? So like not enough people working in specific sectors, but then also on the other hand, these explosive job numbers, like too many people working, both of which seem to lead to the same problem, which is like this inflationary pressure. Mm-hmm. So like square that.
Absolutely. So how I'll describe it is that it's two different areas in labor markets. So what we're seeing in these explosive job numbers, a lot of it has to do with this sudden burst in demand from people coming back into the economy during the reopening. They want to go to restaurants, hair salons, etc. But on the other side, there are these structural labor shortages in areas like healthcare, construction, and a few other sectors like it. So it's a bit of a balancing act. There's still sectors that need workers, but then there's also these blowout numbers over here. So we kind of have to strike that balance here.
Right, and so it's funny that you call it a balancing act, because I think, like, on the one hand, you have the Bank of Canada, right, which is sort of working one very particular lever in raising its overnight rate, like effectively raising interest rates, which is supposed to tackle the demand side,
yes,
right? The pent-up demand that you're talking about. But then there's the labor supply side. Like, how do you go about solving that problem?
Yeah, so in areas like manufacturing, of course, that's once we hire more people in that side of the spectrum, it's contributing to the supply side. I think the hope here is that by taking demand out of the economy, then suddenly these manufacturing or warehouse or distribution centers have less of a need to hire because there's fewer, for example, Amazon packages coming through.
Sure.
So there will be a need to, I assume there would be a need to keep hiring in those sectors or in that area just to keep people staffed, keep supply chains chugging along. We've seen them kind of gunked up for too long. So once that demand is pulled up and gives supply that chance to catch up through workers, through capacity, then we should be in a more balanced area.
And what about the federal government's hand in all of this? Because, we are talking about the budget. Like, what might we see in the ways of solutions?
Exactly. So the federal government will be mindful of price pressures. They'll be mindful of a slowing economy. However, they need to address those structural labor shortages.
Yeah.
So what we saw in the fiscal update a few months ago is this plan to invest $250 million over 5 years to train workers, get them the skills they need to meet these shortages. Leading up to the budget, Chrystia Freeland delivered a speech basically addressing the need to get these skilled workers in these areas, but then also pointing to the record number of skilled immigrants that we're bringing into the country. Another thing I'll touch on is that there's this long-term plan to grow jobs and the economy through the green transition. So, create jobs in areas like electric vehicles and battery manufacturing. But I think the kind of the wolf at the door right now is making sure that there are workers who are skilled, training those workers, or having their skills recognized, hopefully that their credentials can be brought over to Canada to contribute to the lack of healthcare capacity, build more healthcare capacity, and address the housing shortage, which is a huge issue here.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned that, because tell me if I'm wrong, that the introduction of this immigration as a solution to one of our big problems sort of introduces another problem, because the housing crunch is very real, which will give us something to talk about after the break.